Hello, hello, teachers. Back again. I hope everybody's safe, doing great. So this session is going to be on art integrated learning. And we are looking at the concluding part of Deep Water, the chunk that is towards the end. My favorite portion, like I said, because there's a lot of positivity here, right? Let's proceed on that note. So as a reminder, once again, this is where we focus our art integrated learning area. We'll talk about the second aspect in the new session, perhaps, right? As of now, I think this should be good to go. We talked of fear and reasons for fear in the first part with respect to Douglas. We talked about experience and feelings in the previous part. Again, when he sort of, had that experience and the traumatic experience in the pool, right? Today, we are going to conclude and we are going to talk about overcoming fear, right? So the chapter, teaching of the chapter is entirely your forte. My job is to just, nudge you in the direction of creativity and say, please use these art forms or any other. I'm sure you'll come up with brilliant ones, to introduce a particular topic. Again, as a reminder, I'll be showing you quite a few. I would recommend that you just take one and then you carry on, right? Yeah. So this is the last chunk that we are going to be talking about, all right? And the objectives here would be that the student is able to analyze a way to address fear, right? That's very important. Rationalize the consequences of not addressing one's fears. So we need to sort of, use art to get them to understand this as well. And talk about the importance of overcoming fear. Right? Now, I spoke to a lot of teachers and they're very happily, and it was such a pleasure to hear them say that this is, what they basically began with. I'll just show you. In the meantime, the art that I've integrated here is the jingle. You've guessed it, right? That's the clue. Ink drawings, poetry, book cover, designing blurbs, mudras, posters, So you could use any of these, right? So this was really popular with teachers. The very favorite "Dar ke aage jeet hai." So you might want to, sort of take an informed decision of not really taking it all the way to the product, but talk about the feelings that this inspires, this particular advertisement. Just showing it for fun or talking about it is not going to be art integration. So you need to show it. You need to probably have reflective questions on it. What would have happened had he not jumped? I chose this particular one because it deals with the visuals of water, etc. Right? There are a few in the series. I believe it's just been upgraded to a patriotic, way. So you might want to focus on what water is all about in this jingle. Talk about it. The best thing when you're talking about art integration, you could probably say, how would you have shot it had you been a director? What aspect, ability to jump, okay, where all the friends are in water already having a great time. So what else from their lives or experiences as young adults would they want this particular message going out in a particular jingle? To show something like this. So they could perform if you'd like, or they could sort of create the jingle if you want, right? Or the tagline, "Dar ke aage jeet hai." If they could come up with something else, it would be lovely. Or compose a jingle with "Dar ke aage jeet hai." So तू बढ़ तू चल क्योंकि डर के आगे जीत है, or whatever. And it is perfectly all right if they do it in their mother tongue or the local language. So it's perfectly all right. Okay, so yes, and let's have a look at another way of addressing this particular aspect. So I would be using ink drawings. This is for your information, what they are. I'm sure you can see. Very easy to do. So since we are talking, since we want to use art to get them to say that this is a way to overcome fear, so I'd probably show something like this. This has been created. This is off the net. Definitely the links are given below for you, right? So what we are And then you would, you've probably erased this, at least I have. And then, this says a leap of faith and what ideally would be here. So where we want to be, really, that's what it is. I'll show you. And what is that one thing you would like to shout to this person here? What is that one thing? So what is this symbolic of? Is a sphere, so you could talk about those things. And this was the actual inked drawing that was there. So that was my artwork that I integrated to get them to talk about it, to stimulate them, to show them, and then say, could you create one? A similar one. Where would you create this stick figure? What would you like to say? How would you like to represent? And say maybe you have, how difficult is this? They, it's just a pencil, a paper, some words, and a stick figure. So that's beautiful. So beg your pardon, a pen really, because it's ink, right? So you would do that. It would stimulate a whole lot of discussion, because when they are creating something like this in the classroom, they are obviously thinking about the ways that they would like to tell someone to overcome fear, right? You could, get them to read a poem. It's a beautiful piece. And the refrain is of scaling the wall, scale the wall. So fear is crushed by your courage, and so on. Get them to read this and tell them that they have 30 seconds or 40 seconds to, just give the central message about it, or what is the message given by the poet here, poetess, rather poet over here. And you could do it in several different ways. So you're just using poetry as your art form, and they could either represent it diagrammatically with colors as a stick figure, talk about it. Do they want to put it to music? Okay, just that clicks and foot tapping. Do they want to use the duster, the desk? Do they want to, if it's a virtual class, do they want to use things that are there around them in their houses? It's entirely up to you. Please, I'm just telling you, this is another way of doing it. Now, when they talk about the central message, it will come to that you have to face your fear, right? Once they reach there, another piece of ink art, you could show them this. You could, hide this particular portion and ask them, what do you think this represents? Like I said, don't use everything. Either use this or use this, okay, right? So why is it important? And ask them the questions. Why is it important to face the fears, right? Let me take you back once again. What would happen if you don't face your fears? How would it impact the individual, right? So, and once someone has overcome the fears, remember, Douglas, you know what your chapter is. So you're going to touch all the 3 aspects that are there in the last chunk, so that when they're reading the chapter, they can understand all of it, right? So you show them something like this, a poster. Okay, there is someone who's good. So his name is Indrajyoti Sen Gupta. He's a motivational speaker. And this is the poster, Overcoming Fear and Anxiety During Critical Times. All right. So this is what he's talking about. Now, what is the question? Your question is, what do you think he'll talk about? What is it that he will say? Okay. And then tell them to put up a performance using this poster as clues as to what they need to talk about. Beg your pardon. Okay, so you've given them the stimulant by way of which they will do something like this. So they can talk about it, all right? And then as a follow-up activity towards a conclusion, when you've done your unit, you could, share this with them. This is the Abhaya Mudra. So it says that this posture, position, there are different mudras, right? There are different mudras that we have. This one helps cultivate a better sense of awareness and helps to overcome fear. So there are several things you could do. You have one of these. You could ask them to create a bit of an infographic about facts about drowning, or you could ask them to do a podcast. You've already shown them a motivational speaker. You could ask them to create a blurb or a book cover, show them one, and say, imagine that Deep Water is a story, which is in a mini book format. What's the kind of cover that you would give? What is the blurb that you would write, for it? What is the tagline? What kind of photo would you want? So they could design it on their computers, and what are the visuals you will use for the story book Water? Imagine it to be a complete book. And this is the story. Of course, it's taken from Men in Mountains, but we are going to go with the excerpt that we have in our Flamingo, right? So all of these are follow-up activities, just quick, informal way of, expressing themselves. Nothing that is forced upon them saying that you have to do it. It's a project, it's AIL, no, right? So I think that just about takes care of it. That's the end of Deep Water. That was my attempt at sharing what I think would be useful for all of you, right? Don't forget to stay tuned for the next one. I have to remember to tell you to subscribe, okay? Because all my well-wishers are going to be very upset with me. Apparently, that is the way it is said. So please subscribe and you know what to do, right? The next one is going to be on case-based factual passage for classes 9 to 12. That's a new appearance in the papers, in the curriculum document. So it's for the reading section of part A of the paper. This is question number 2. So I'm going to do it in 2 parts. The first part I'll tell you basically for maybe less than a minute as to what it is, why it's been included, probably what's the logic behind it, and then how is it that you can get material for it, right? I've done it in several trainings. It would be lovely to share it with the rest of the country, so that they can have they just sort of reach out and create their own resource, right? So on that note, stay safe, stay empowered, and keep rocking.